field.
Oh, wow.
And I was not happy at all because, I thought about making that Yankee team in 77. People remember that they beat the Dodgers in the 77 and the 78 World Series, but they don't remember who the infielders were other than Nettles, Dent, and Randolph. Well, they had George Zieber was an infielder on that Yankee team in 77, and I was upset that Billy kept him in 77 instead of me, and history shows that I was a better ball player. I played a lot longer and did more in baseball than Zieber did. No offense to George Zieber, but when I got to Syracuse, the AAA team, I had a meeting of my team, and I looked at all of them in the face, and I said, all you guys are man enough to grow a mustache, aren't you? I said, raise your hands right now. And they all raised their hands. So I got them to sign a paper, and I took the paper into the manager, and I said, we're growing mustaches. You can tell the Yankees, because I wanted to get traded. It wasn't that I wanted a mustache as much as I wanted released or traded, because I was 28.
Yeah. So the mustache was a trade tactic to get moved on to a different team?
Yeah, the only reason I did it was I told him, I told Pete Ward, my manager, who old White Sox third baseman, I said, Pete, nothing against you, but I'm going to be your worst nightmare in Syracuse. I said, I want out of here. I said, I'll do anything I can to get traded or released. I don't care. So the only way that you can really do something like I did with the Mustache Revolt was to be a darn good player. Yeah. And I was playing shortstop. I was hitting third. I was one of the top infielders in the league. History shows it. So I would go out knowing that I was growing a mustache against Steinbrenner's rules, knowing that I had to go out and do the job. So I put the pressure on myself. But at that point in my life, when you are desperate to get a shot at the big leagues, you'll do anything. Yep. So 3 weeks after I started the Mustache Revolt, the Yankees changed the rule. They allowed all the minor leaguers to grow mustaches. All the guys on the team they were patting me on the back, and I wasn't happy. And I said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm broke. I'm still in AAA. I got a real thin mustache going."
Yeah.
But soon after that, to follow up with what you asked, Marvin Miller called me up in Syracuse, and he goes, "Greg," he said, "I just want you to know that at the end of the season in Syracuse, you can be a free agent." I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, when we signed the basic agreement in 76, you were one of the players that was called up during 76 with the Rangers, and you were sent back, but you never signed a major league contract after that. So you have the rights to free agency. Well, the Yankees found out about it. Gabe Paul called me. He goes, we traded Sandy Alomar for you, Sandy Alomar Sr. He says, we need to sign you. You need to fly to New York as soon as possible. So here I went from not being able to grow a mustache from the Yankees. Now they want to sign me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I flew to New York. I met with Steinbrenner face-to-face. He offered me a 2-year contract, and I was broke, so it was a lot of money to me. I looked at him. I said, Mr. Steinbrenner, I said, where am I going to play on this team? And then he said, oh, don't worry about that. We got plans for you. And I knew they didn't have any plans for me. I mean, come on. I'm not going to replace those 3 guys in the infield. So I said, well, Mr. Steinbrenner, I appreciate your offer. And I knew before I went to New York I wasn't going to sign. I went over there for experience. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me. He goes, son, don't you know what it's going to mean to you to have the Yankee name on your resume the rest of your life? And this is for all the Yankee haters out there. I said, no, I really don't know what it would mean to me. I'm sure it would mean a lot. He says, son, if you don't sign this contract, you're going to go to the top of my dumbass list. And I looked at him, and I silently I said, no, you don't say that to me. That's not the right thing to say.
Yeah.
So I walked out of the office. I turned the contract down. And for all the Yankees haters out there, now you'll like me even more. Probably, I hope you do. I turned the Yankees down, and I left there. I went back to Syracuse, and then I started thinking to myself, what if I go through the draft in November and nobody wants me?
Yeah.
Because you can't take anything for granted in baseball. Look what's going on right now. So, but I got back to Syracuse, and then the draft happened in November, and I got drafted by 5 teams, among them were the White Sox. Steve Greenberg called me, Hank Greenberg's son. Steve had just became an agent, and Steve said, Greg, I'm an agent now. I knew Steve. He used to be with the Senators and Rangers, too, in the minors. And he says, I'd like to be your agent. He says, I'm really close with Bill Veeck, and I think that the White Sox could use you. I'd like to be your agent. I said, what's that mean? He said, well, you'd give me a percentage of whatever I get for you. I said, what's the percentage? He goes, it was either 3 or 4%. It was nothing. I mean, I said, you're hired. It's the only agent that called me, and he's the only agent I had in my 9 years in the big leagues. So I signed with the White Sox, a year contract, and I go to Sarasota for spring training, and I was so excited. I was around Don Kessinger. It was amazing to be able to be around real bona fide big leaguers. And I went to Chicago, and I finally got in a lineup in '78. I did enough of a good job that they signed me to a 2-year extension because in my first contract, I could be a free agent after my first year. That was what I liked about it. And in fact, I got more money from the White Sox than the Yankees offered me. So I signed a 1-year contract with free agency after my first year. During September, they offered me a 2-year extension. I signed that. I ended up playing 4 years there. I was in Tony La Russa's first game as a manager. I was a shortstop. That was kind of a fun thing to look back on.
Yeah.
After what Tony did in his career, but and I asked Tony to write the forward to my book, which he did, and I was so excited that he did that because he was in the Hall of Fame. But I saw him when he was a manager. Really didn't know what he was doing. You don't learn managing just because you show up. You learn managing over time on how to deal with players. So Tony wrote a great forward to my book, and that's I'm so glad that I'm here to let people know that it's available if they want it.
Yeah. One quick question, Gary. So when you arrived at the Royals, did you and Kaufman still have the no shave, the clean face rule?
I don't think so. I think that when I got here, as I look back on it, I think Auerbach blew that. I think Auerbach had a beard.
Well, and Willie Wilson had the skin problem, and that's where it kind of started.
Yeah, I didn't know that Kaufman had that. But no, when I got here, I think I had a mustache, and I had it all 5 years I played here.
Let's go back. You went in as, you said you were around 28, and you're there with George Steinbrenner, no agent at the time, just, you and you're across the table from him. And I mean, I would have to think just, based on his legacy, that would be a pretty intimidating situation. But, you're like, hey, I know that I can play in the big leagues, and you could tell they didn't really have, that plan for you at the time. So,
well,
how was that? Was that a little intimidating being across the table from him?
Well, thanks for thinking that I knew I could play in the big leagues. The only time that a player really knows he can play in the big leagues is if he can get out there and play a month, 2, 3, 4 months in a row. That's when you find out. Because I learned when I went with the White Sox and I played like I don't know, 100 games my first year or so. I played 143 games the next year. You had to learn how to pace myself. And but when I was in front of Steinbrenner, it was like, well, Pryor, what are you going to do? You're going to turn down the guy that owns the team that was just in the World Series in '76. Yeah. They lost 4 straight to the Reds in '76. Then they went back in '77, beat the Dodgers 4 straight. But I was so confident that I was not going to be a Yankee. I didn't even imagine. I mean, had they thrown silly money at me, I might have taken it. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be here if I did, I don't think. And people say, well, Greg, if you signed with the Yankees, you might have been on the World Series team in '77. I could have been. But I didn't look back when he said I'd be a dumbass if I didn't sign with him. I kind of lost respect in him. Because I don't think that's the way that you negotiate, calling people names for not doing what you want or what they want you to do. And I didn't get any revenge on him, but it's a funny story that in '81 we had a 51-day strike in baseball. And my wife and I were in Chicago. We went out to Arlington racetrack where they race horses. And Steinbrenner had a horse there and was walking it to the gate. And my wife said, Michelle, she says, Greg, go say hi to Mr. Steinbrenner. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. So she forced me to go say hi to him. I walked down there, and I walked right up to him, and I said, hey, Mr. Steinbrenner. I said, it's Greg Pryor. I used to work for you. He goes, Pryor? He said, I know who you are. I remember you. He said, we should never have let you go.
Oh.
Wow. And that was like, oh, man, that was like, I feel so good now. Because I had some good games against the Yankees, and against Billy Martin in my career. I mean, you have to have good games against him. And so he saw the value in me as an opposing player, and that's what's great about baseball. Everybody wonders how so-and-so is going to do, or can so-and-so do it? Can they come back from injury? Can they come back? Can we trade for an older player and expect more from him? That's what I love about the game. Is it's so unpredictable, and I can't wait for it to get started this summer sometime.
Yeah. Definitely missing it right now. So you get to Kansas City. You finished up in Chicago. How does that time kind of wind down, and then how do you end up here in Kansas City?
Well, I played, as I said, I played for La Russa in the end of 79 and 80, and then 81. And then he called me before spring training of 82 in Sarasota. I was still at White Sox, and La Russa told me that I didn't fit in the plans. He says, you're not gonna make our club. And Michelle was pregnant with our first daughter. And I was living in Sarasota, and he's telling me I'm out of a job. And I said, hey, Tony, and I appreciated him calling me. Mm-hmm. I said, Tony, why don't you just release me? He goes, nope, you're going to come to spring training. So I go to spring training, and every day of spring training of 82 was like a World Series to me, because you have to go out and you have to play, because you never know what might happen. People are looking for players. I didn't know what scouts were out there. But the last week of spring training of 82, the Royals lost two infielders. Onyx Concepcion and Tim Ireland broke bones in their hands, and the Royals were looking for an infielder. And I was just a little bit north of Fort Myers up in Sarasota, and they traded for me the last week of spring training in 82. And I got told about it by La Russa after a B game in Fort Myers. I had to take an early bus to Fort Myers to play in a B game, and as a veteran, you didn't want to play in B games. But I played in the B game, and he called me out of the training room, and he goes, Greg, I just want to let you know that the Royals just traded for you. John Sherholtz is in the next room. Good luck to you. And Tony went back for the A game. So I walked over to the next room to meet my new boss, John Sherholtz, and I'm like shocked beyond belief.
Yeah.
Because I was there 4 weeks thinking I'm not going to make the team. I had bills to pay. So I go to meet Sherholtz, and he's looking at me. Greg, John Sherholtz, glad to meet you. Glad to have you with us. And I'm thinking, okay. What are you going to do? I said, I said this to him. I said, you mean I'm on your team? And he goes, oh yeah, you're going to Baltimore next week. We're opening up in Baltimore. So I was like, so I go back, and I drove back to Sarasota, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Greg, you just got traded to the team you hate. I hated the Royals so bad. Because, when the Royals played the White Sox in Comiskey, Hal McRae, he would walk up to home plate with a broom to the batting cage. And I would be out there, I'm thinking, why has McRae got a broom up there? He goes, that's his signal that they're going to sweep every game from us. This is old-time baseball. This is Hal McRae. So I said, what a jerk. So here I get traded, and I never talk to them when they get on second or third base when I play for the White Sox. I never talk to them. Mm-hmm. Like you see some guys chumming around. Yeah. I never talk to opposing players, because you might have to get into a scrum with them. I'm not going to be friendly with them. I'm trying to beat them. So I walked in the clubhouse the next morning to a clubhouse that I really didn't like anybody in there, and the equipment manager walks over, Al Zeke, and he goes, Pryor, glad to have you with us. He says, I need your number. I need to get your number stitched. I said, I don't care. Give me any number you want. I wasn't into numbers. And Jimmy Quirk, one of the few guys that I knew from Instruction League, he runs over to my locker, and he said hi, and he goes, what are they doing? I said, they want me to give them a number. He goes, take number 4. I said, why? He says, your locker next to George. And I think I hated George more than anybody. So I said, give me number 4. So for 5 seasons, I lockered next to George. And finally, when I got to meet George, he walked, and after I got traded, he walks up and he goes, Pryor, we trade for you? I said, yeah. He goes, let me ask you a question. Whenever I was on second or third base in Comiskey Park or Royal Stadium, he says, how come you never talked to me? I said, because I really didn't like you. And he says, you like me now? I said, I love you now. So, I had a great relationship. It's funny in baseball where, you never know where you might end up. Because I was with the Senators, I was with the Rangers, I was at the Yankees. I played winter ball in Venezuela with Louis Aparicio. So I was used to be around different players at different times in my career. But going to the Royals was a big honor for me. It was like Amos Otis pulled me aside when I got traded, and he goes, Pryor, it's different here in Kansas City. Here we're expected to win. I hope you know that. And I said, yes, sir. You know, it's like Amos Otis told me what the rules were when I first got here, and that's old-time baseball.
Yeah.
And the only way you get respect of guys like Amos and George and Frank and Willie and guys is you have to go out and help the team win. You know, and it wasn't like a shoe-in that I was going to be a success here in Kansas City. I was only under a one-year contract.